So initially, I was going to be putting out a video on the Boston Celtics and their meltdown of a performance in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals after gaining all this momentum and coming back from being down 0-3 in the series to lose on their home court in a lackluster effort. But rather than focusing on that, I thought it would be a disservice to take away all the attention from just how great the Miami Heat have been throughout this playoffs and how unprecedented this run has been in getting back to the NBA Finals since the 2020 bubble and being the first 8 seed to make it to the finals since the Knicks did it in 1999. And you combine that with the fact that you had so many people, including myself, talking about the Heat and how they were done, how they were going to need to blow this team up, trade away Jimmy Butler, start fresh, and start on a new direction after having a pretty underwhelming regular season. All of that now has been thrown out the window as they sit pretty on top of the conference as the East champs, and with now a chance at an NBA title, their first since the LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh title in 2013. If you're new to the channel and you enjoy this type of content, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a video, and in return I'll be providing more NBA content like this. Now, it's important to remember, which I think anyone who is a Bulls fan will remember, that the Miami Heat were just a few minutes away from losing their second play-in game against the Bulls, a game in which it actually looked like the Bulls were going to come away with the win, especially after riding the momentum of winning that first game in Toronto, and the Heat coming off a disappointing loss against the Atlanta Hawks, losing their chance at the 7th seed with less than 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. The Bulls up 3 with momentum on their side. The Miami Heat, specifically Jimmy Butler, turned things up, took over the game, and went on to take the Bulls out by way also of the Bulls going ice cold from the floor, unable to put up a single field goal. Those final minutes set the stage for the next few weeks, and the Heat being absolutely locked in on their way to the NBA Finals, a team that no one had making it beyond the first round and getting past the Milwaukee Bucks, would go on to dominate the best team in the league, winning that series in 5 games. Yes, albeit a team that was without Giannis for a portion of that series, but nonetheless putting them in a position to choke away Game 5 on their home court, blowing a big lead in the fourth quarter and collapsing in the final seconds of the game, both in regulation and in overtime. The Heat got Budenholzer fired for crying out loud for the number 1 seed losing to the 8th seed in 5 games in the first round. Jimmy Butler said he was stupidly locked in that series, and while some might have laughed, citing it was easy to say that after having a good playoff series in the first round when you're the underdog with little pressure, Jimmy Butler would go on to back that up in leading his team to beating the Knicks in convincing fashion in the second round, and would take the Heat up to a 3-0 series lead against the defending Eastern Conference champs in the Boston Celtics. But despite the Heat taking that big lead, getting cocky, talking trash on the court, Jimmy Butler returning the taunting timeout call for the Celtics that Al Horford once did to them, and despite the fact that no team in NBA history has ever come back from being down 0-3 in a series after getting blown out in games 4 and 5, sending the series back to Miami for Game 6, it felt as if the Heat didn't finish off this series in Game 6 on their home court. They were done. Not a chance the Celtics would lose Game 7 on their floor after regaining all the momentum on their side, and the Heat being demoralized after blowing a 3-0 lead. And with the Heat losing in crushing fashion after failing to box out the inbounder in Derek White and letting him get a putback attempt with less than a second in the game, this after the Heat were awarded 3 free throws to take the lead with 3 seconds left, looked like it would all but end the series for the Miami Heat, and they would go on to see the Celtics reach the NBA Finals yet again. And with Jimmy Butler looking a little gassed in Games 5 and 6, not looking as locked in as we once saw from him, I had serious doubts that the Heat would be able to close this one out in Game 7, and we would all witness to see the first comeback, 0-3 comeback in NBA history. But we should have known a team like the Miami Heat and the culture for which they pride themselves on wouldn't be going away without a fight. The Heat would go on to dominate the game from the jump, not fazed at all by their heartbreaking loss in Game 6, not worried about their shooting that had seemingly started falling off, not worried that the Celtics had found new life after winning Game 4 and Coach Mazzulla citing visiting terminal cancer patients as his way of maintaining hope and faith that his team could come back and win this series. The Miami Heat, calm and collected, would control the game, pushing the Celtics on every possession, forcing bad shots, getting in the passing lanes, fighting for loose balls, making it damn near impossible for Boston to get any open looks, no matter how many skip court passes, no matter the level of ball movement. The Heat were there, a man in their face. They managed to hold the Celtics to 84 points in an elimination game. just 18 points in the fourth quarter, outscoring them 27-18, shutting the series down and taking all the hope out of the Celtics and their fans that they had a chance to actually win this one. It was almost as if the Heat knew all along they were taking this thing and just wanted to toy with the Celtics to give them some hope and life to actually think they had a chance in coming back and going to the finals. You saw it in Jimmy's face after every loss, smiling on the bench after the game was over. The man knew that he had this one in the bag and thought it was cute that the Celtics were getting excited, thinking they were about to make history. But as much as we have been praising Jimmy Butler, and in the same playoff performance that he's been having since taking over that final play-in game against the Bulls, it cannot be understated just how impressive a player who was out of the rotation last year in the same playoff series has been in showing out in these playoffs, and that's Caleb Martin. Some people laughed when they saw Caleb Martin receive votes for winning the MVP award over Jimmy Butler, but Caleb Martin has been every bit as good as Jimmy Butler has been, and this coming from an undrafted, unknown player who had to work his way into the league, getting summer league invites, signing Exhibit 10 agreements, two-way contracts, getting waived by the Hornets to then signing with the Heat on a two-way deal before it was converted to a fully guaranteed deal, and then signing a multi-year agreement on a very team-friendly contract. For a player like that to go unknown to having one of the best performances of the conference finals and rivaling Jimmy Butler for the MVP award is such a big come up for a young player, and Game 7 in particular, as great as Jimmy was, Martin was the hero of that game. 26 points on 11 for 16 shooting, 4 for 6 from deep to go along with 10 rebounds. You know, when Tyler Hero went down with his hand injury and the Heat knew that they were going to be without him for the rest of the postseason unless they happened to make the finals, which they did, there were questions around who was going to step up and be that second scoring option behind Jimmy, as Hero had been all season long. Because Bam, as great as he is defensively, isn't going to be your second scoring option on offense, on a consistent basis anyway. That's just not his role. And while Gabe Vincent and Max Strus have stepped up big throughout this playoffs, along with Kyle Lowry and his veteran leadership, no one would have expected a player who averaged less than 10 points per game all season long on less than 8 shot attempts, and quite frankly, had a bit of a down year shooting it from outside, that player would step up in the manner he did with total confidence and rising to the occasion in the biggest moments. No one would have expected that from Caleb Martin in being that guy for the Heat that they could consistently rely upon and actually receive votes for the MVP award of the series, and not have it be a joke and be a legitimate take that he was deserving of the award. Just absolutely incredible. And it's still insane to me that the Heat always manage to find these gems in undrafted or not highly recruited players that they're able to develop and turn into solid rotational players. You see that with Max Strus and Gabe Vincent as well. All of this said though, as great of a run as the Heat have had, and I do think they will make it challenging for the Nuggets in the finals, I don't think Denver is going to simply wipe the floor of them and win this series easily. I do still think the Nuggets will go on to win the championship and win their first title in franchise history, which I talked about in my last video. They're just too good. Not a good matchup for the Miami Heat, and play incredibly well together, and it also helps when you have the best player of the series on your team, which the Nuggets do in Nikola Jokic, who has been focused and on point this entire playoffs. The Celtics, I'll have a video out later this week about that team, where they go from here, because they do have some big questions and decisions to make this offseason, especially for some of their bigger players who are due for contract extensions. A disappointing end to their season after what they thought they were looking to do and making history in an 0-3 comeback, but we'll save that for a different day. Until then, guys, as always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.